The 410th meeting of the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People is called to order. The agenda for this meeting is before the committee in document A/183/2023/L.1. If I hear no objections, I shall consider it adopted. It is adopted. I now invite the committee to consider candidatures for the posts of Chair, Vice Chair and Rapporteur of the committee. The Secretariat of the committee has received the following candidatures. His Excellency Mr. Sheikh Niang, Permanent Representative of Senegal as Chair. His Excellency Mr. Pedro Luis Pedroso Cuesta, Permanent Representative of Cuba as Vice Chair. His Excellency Ms. Armanata Kristiawan Nasir, Permanent Representative of Indonesia as Vice Chair. His Excellency Mr. Neville Melvin Gertze, Permanent Representative of Namibia as Vice Chair. Mr. Nasir is of Indonesia, if I made a mistake. His Excellency Mr. Jaime Hermida Castillo, Permanent Representative of Nicaragua as Vice Chair. Before we proceed with the election, are there any comments or questions? No comments? If there are no requests for the floor, I shall take it that the committee approves the proposal just made and unanimously elects His Excellency Mr. Sheikh Niang, Permanent Representative of Senegal to the United Nations, as Chair of the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People. I also take it that the committee unanimously elects as Vice Chairs His Excellency Mr. Pedro Luis Pedroso Cuesta, Permanent Representative of Cuba to the United Nations, His Excellency Mr. Ahmanata Kristiawan Nasir of Indonesia to the United Nations, His Excellency Mr. Neville Melvin Gertze, Permanent Representative of Namibia to the United Nations, and His Excellency Mr. Jaime Hermida Castillo, Permanent Representative of Nicaragua to the United Nations. I'm informed that the Permanent Representative of Malaysia expressed interest to serve as the Vice Chair and Rapporteur of the Bureau. The Permanent Representative could not take his post as he was recently reassigned by his government to another post as the Malaysian ambassador designate to Indonesia. In this regard, the committee will reconvene and hold a special election when the new Permanent Representative is appointed. It's so decided. I now invite His Excellency Ambassador Sheikh Niang to take a seat at the podium. Where should he sit? Yes. Huh? I move ahead. Yes. Huh? I move. There. This is yours. This is mine. This is mine. This is mine. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Thank you.
Secretary General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I would like to thank the Secretary General for presiding over the Bureau elections and turning on item 3 on the agenda. I have now the distinct honor of giving the floor to the Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, who has, despite his very busy schedule, taken the time to be with us today, and he will now deliver a statement. You have the floor, Secretary General.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to join this meeting of the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People. I congratulate the Chair, Ambassador Sheikh Niang, and other members of the Bureau on your election. And I commend all of you for your tireless commitment. We meet as the situation in the occupied Palestinian territory is at its most combustible in years. Just this morning, we had more deeply concerning news. An operation by Israeli security forces and the ensuing clash in Nablus left 10 Palestinians dead and over 80 injured. Deadly cycles of violence keep accelerating, tensions are sky high, and the peace process remains stalled. The situation in Jerusalem, Al-Quds, is becoming more fragile amidst provocations and acts of violence in and around the holy sites. It radiates instability across the region and beyond. The position of the United Nations is clear. The status of Jerusalem cannot be altered by unilateral actions. Jerusalem's demographic and historical character must be preserved, and the status quo at the holy sites must be upheld in line with the special role of the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. Excellencies, 2022 was the deadliest year for Palestinians since OCHA began systematically tracking fatalities in 2005. 2 months into the new year, violence rages on without reprieve. Across the occupied West Bank and Gaza, hopelessness is spreading, feeding anger and despair. Each new settlement is another roadblock on the path to peace. All settlement activity is illegal under international law, and it must stop. At the same time, incitement to violence is a dead end. Nothing justifies terrorism. It must be rejected by all. Our immediate priority must be to prevent further escalation, reduce tensions, and restore calm. Excellencies, I am deeply concerned by Israel's recent punitive measures against the Palestinian Authority following the resolution of the General Assembly seeking an International Court of Justice advisory opinion on the occupation. There should be no retaliation with respect to the Palestinian Authority in relation to the International Court of Justice. These measures risk further destabilizing the Palestinian Authority at a time when it's already struggling with a dire fiscal crisis that is undermining its ability to provide services to people. Meanwhile, another vital lifeline for Palestinians, UNRWA, continues to confront the impossible task of meeting soaring needs with stagnating funding. And yet UNRWA remains remarkably resilient, high-performing, and highly cost-effective. I urge all donors to live up to their commitments and ensure UNRWA has the predictable and sustained support it needs to fulfill its critical mission. In this context, let me also note the importance of easing the movement of goods and people in and out the Gaza Strip. I reiterate my call to work towards a full lifting of the debilitating closures in line with UN Security Council Resolution 1860. Excellencies, our ultimate goals remain unchanged: end the occupation, realize a two-state solution. But we must face today's reality. The truth is that trends on the ground mean time is working against us. The longer we go without meaningful political negotiations, the farther these goals slip from the reach. Regional and international partners must collectively work with greater urgency and determination to help Palestinians and Israelis restore a credible political horizon. The outlines of the solution are clear. They are laid out in United Nations resolutions, international law, and bilateral agreements. What is needed is the political will and courage to make the difficult choices for peace. A peace that ends the occupation and ensures two states, Israel and an independent, viable, and sovereign Palestinian state, living side by side within secure and recognized borders, with Jerusalem as the capital of both states. A peace in which Palestinians and Israelis alike enjoy equal measures of democracy, opportunity, and dignity in their lives. A peace, in short, that is just, comprehensive, and lasting. I pledge to keep working to support this goal, and I thank you.
I thank the Secretary General for his statement and for the words of encouragement addressed to the committee. Secretary General, we are aware of all the steps and initiatives you have been taking to solve the question of Palestine, and I would like to seize this opportunity to express to you on behalf of the committee our gratitude and sincere appreciation for that continued commitment. Allow me now to make a statement in my capacity as chair of the committee to mark the first meeting of the committee in 2023. Monsieur le Secrétaire Général, Mesdames, Messieurs.
Secretary General, ambassadors, permanent representatives, colleagues, distinguished delegates. At the outset, on behalf of the members of the United Nations on the inalienable exercise of the rights of the Palestinian people, may I convey my warm thanks to the Secretary General. It is an honor to have him here. His presence at each of our important meetings shows his ongoing commitment towards a definitive solution to the Palestinian question on the basis of international law and relevant resolutions of our organization. We welcome this. Colleagues, I wish to convey my deep gratitude and great appreciation of Senegal for the honor and privilege given to me once again by endorsing my re-election to chair over this committee, renewing your trust in my country. In this regard, I wish to convey President Macky Sall's commitment to you to ensure making the efforts needed under the mandate entrusted to us under the relevant resolution, that is to ensure the exercise of the inalienable rights of Palestinian people. I would also like to warmly congratulate the other distinguished Bureau members, ambassadors, permanent representative of Cuba, Namibia, Nicaragua, and Indonesia. Colleagues, your devotion and commitment to this committee reflect your country's respective commitment to the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. As the Secretary General indicated, Malaysia had wanted to present the candidature of its ambassador to fill the vacant posts of the chair, and those elections will be held as soon as possible. Secretary General, we welcome the division, the relevant division in helping us to organize our mandate here before the UN. We wish to encourage the division to persevere in its efforts, especially in disseminating the activities of the work of this committee to the public to ensure that the rights of Palestinian people are at the forefront. 2021 was a great challenge to the Palestinian people. We saw the highest number of deaths by the Palestinian people recorded by the UN since it started documenting these in 2005. The continuing occupation of the Israelis, their policies and illegal practices of Israel, such as under the settlements, the creeping annexations, dispossession, destruction of Palestinian territory, and deliberate demographic changes. This is a serious infringement on the rights of the Palestinian people to their independence and the sovereignty of the Palestinian state. And to find a solution, we should remain concerned by the elevated level of violence that we see throughout the occupied Palestinian territories, including in East Jerusalem, and the alarming situation we've seen over the past weeks, marked by violence, confrontations, military actions that continue to include children among the victims. This is all the more alarming when we see that in 2023 we see a dangerous cycle of violence on the ground, growing tension and blocking of the peace process, the illegal unilateral measures, and including on the holy sites of East Jerusalem. This is the main cause, and this must cease in order to preserve the historic and legal status quo of the holy sites of Jerusalem. In this context, we welcome the adoption by the Security Council from 20 February 2023 of a presidential declaration unanimously condemning the illegal settlement efforts and to preserve international peace and security. I would urge the Council to turn this message into effective actions and tackle this suffering that has been going on for too long. Secretary General, colleagues, we remain convinced that the best way to ensure the environment for peace and sustainable resolution to this is to stop with all of this violence and return to the negotiating table to find a comprehensive solution, giving each party their sovereign right. This is a two-state solution. In that context, we must relaunch the peace process and put on the table all pending matters, such as that on settlements, the Statute of Jerusalem, refugees, security, and the situation in Gaza. In this context, all parties should refrain from unilateral actions that undermine relaunching the peace process. The committee strongly condemns any form of violence or incitement to hate, regardless of the authors or motivations, the origin, because we are committed to the peaceful resolution of the question of Palestine. In this respect, on behalf of the committee, I would invite Israel and the international community to ensure that the rights of the Palestinian peoples is upheld, and namely the right to live in freedom and dignity in a sovereign, independent state. You mentioned UNRWA and the support it needs. I wish to echo this and say that UNRWA continues to face serious financial challenges. We urge member states to maintain their firm support of this agency and continue to support it to show the international solidarity towards refugees, Palestinian refugees, in the areas of education, health, humanitarian assistance, and development. To conclude, once again, I wish to thank you for your commitment, Secretary General. We count on you, and you have our support as well. On behalf of the committee, we wish to reaffirm the UN position once again towards a two-state solution, living side by side in peace and security within safe, recognized borders on the basis of pre-1967 lines. Here I wish to conclude by conveying my gratitude once again and the gratitude of the committee. Thank you.
I'm now going to give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Riyad Mansour, Permanent Observer of the State of Palestine to the United Nations. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And also allow me to share with you the sentiment of welcoming His Excellency, the Secretary General, and the delegation accompanying him, and to thank him for his statement. Allow me also to congratulate you for the re-election as the Chairman of the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People, and all of my colleagues who have been elected to the Bureau. We are grateful to you and through you to the committee for the continuous efforts for implementing your mandate in advancing the implementation of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people, including their right to self-determination, statehood and independence, and the rights of the refugees in accordance with international law and relevant UN resolutions. As we meet today, Mr. Chairman, we woke up this morning on the details of the news of another massacre waged against our people in the city of Nablus. City of Nablus under the total control, supposedly, of the Palestine National Authority and its security forces. This aggression resulted in, so far, the murdering of 10 Palestinians, including children and elderly, and the injuries of 102. A number of them are fighting for their lives, and therefore, the number of deaths could very easily increase. Since the beginning of this year, 61 Palestinians have been killed, 12 of them are children, and hundreds have been injured. As the Secretary General stated, that last year was the bloodiest year in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, since OCHA started collecting statistics in the year 2005. This year, 2023, is showing that it is going to be bloodier than 2022. Therefore, we condemn in the strongest possible terms these atrocities against our people in Jenin, in Nablus, in Jerusalem, in Jericho, in every part of the occupied Palestinian territory. And we can reflect to you the call of the Palestinian people. They want safety and protection. Just only 2 days ago, the Security Council adopted unanimously a presidential statement in which it emphasized in one of the paragraphs the need to protect the civilians, the need not to hinder the services of humanitarian organizations to access the people in these areas, meaning the Red Cross, the ambulances, to evacuate the dead and the injured. And again, in Nablus today, the Israeli occupying forces did not allow the ambulances to access these areas as quickly as possible to save lives. We condemn these things, and we reflect again the call of the Palestinian people. They want the end of occupation. They want the protection that they deserve. They want the implementation of all resolutions of the Security Council, including resolutions related to protection, including Resolution 904, which was adopted in the year 1994 when the massacre took place in Al-Haram al-Ibrahimi in Hebron, in Al-Khalil. And that resolution called for, among other things, disarming the settlers, having temporary international presence through the occupied Palestinian territory. Now, also, your report after the massacre of the 2018 called, among other things, and you advised and suggested that expanding existing mechanisms to provide protection. We want all these things to be implemented. We want the resolutions of the Security Council in this regard to be implemented, and we want to see all of the mechanisms under your disposals in the occupied Palestinian territory, under the disposal of the UN, to be expanded in order really to put an end to these massacres against our people. These areas are under the total control of the Palestinian Authority. The Israeli forces are not allowed to go there at will and to use all kinds of pretexts in order to slaughter our people and to create havoc and to create horror among the Palestinian people, including children and women and the vulnerable people. And we are going through a period of time in which the occupied Palestinian territory are in the verge of massive eruption because of the policies and practices, particularly of this Israeli government, that since it took office in December, it took us to the Security Council 3 times in January. And it took us to the Security Council 1 time this month and possibly another time because of all these policies and practices in complete breach of international law, especially international humanitarian law. And therefore, the United Nations, which is supposed to stand by the weak and the vulnerable, should stand with the Palestinian people. The United Nations and the environment of today, using sets of measures on another situation, should be applicable to our situation. If those who violate the principle, the cardinal principles in the Charter of the United Nations, such as violating the right of people to self-determination, and such as the inadmissibility of the acquisition of land by force, if it is applicable in another situation, in the next room and the room next to the next room, then it should be also applicable to the Palestinian people vis-a-vis the violations that the Israeli occupying authority is committing against our people, and the terrorist settlers who are raising havoc against our people, who are living a daily fear. They are afraid to move from place A to place B because they will be attacked by the armed settlers, whom this current government is going even to give them more weapons so that to conduct more massacres against the Palestinian people. So therefore, we will work with you, Mr. Secretary General, but we need to see action. We cannot now convince our people that we make resolutions at the UN, but these resolutions are not implemented. We are losing credibility. You are losing credibility. This fabulous system is losing credibility. They want to see implementation of what you decide. They want to see authority to your words, not only to have them in an abstract sense, and when it comes to practical reality, they don't see concrete results and implementation. As you see, I am reflecting the anger of the Palestinian people and the frustration from the leadership down, because they keep seeing the United Nations articulating the good positions that we know, adopting the appropriate resolutions, but they don't see teeth to these resolutions. They don't see implementation. And this current Israeli government, even today, massacre against Nablus, it was not an accident. They knew that the international community will be busy with another big issue, and then they thought that nobody will be saying anything about them. They are dead mistaken. The international community should act, should implement its resolutions, and should step up to the plate to protect the Palestinian civilian population. Mr. Chairman, I will stop at this point. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary General, we will be sending to you in the hour to come a letter, as well as a similar letter to the Security Council and to the President of the General Assembly, giving you the details of what is happening today, and also requesting implementations of resolutions and reports, resolutions of the General Assembly as well as the Security Council, and reports such as your report on the issue of protection. And we hope that the mechanism of the UN and the international community as a whole will show the Palestinian people a different resolve and step up to the plate to really provide practical measures to protect them from the onslaught by this extremely ruthless, rightist Israeli government being put in place. And in connection with settlements, of course, we condemn the announcement of the 10,000 units. We condemn the legalization of the 9 outposts, and we expect all those who opposed these breaches of international law to follow them with practical steps, so that this current Israeli government to take you seriously, not only to take note of what you say, and they continue with their breaches and creating all these difficulties and all this suffering for the Palestinian people living under the Israeli occupation. And we hope, we sincerely hope, that we all succeed soon in beginning a process that would lead to the end of the Israeli occupation that started on the 4th of June of 1967, and to see the independence of the State of Palestine with East Jerusalem as its capital, and therefore to actualize the global consensus on the two-state solution to become a reality. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
I thank His Excellency the Permanent Observer of the State of Palestine for his remarks. We shall now suspend the meeting for a few minutes to allow Secretary General to leave the room. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
When is you coming back? This meeting is resumed. Excellencies, dear colleagues, we shall now move to agenda item 4, which is the adoption of the draft program of work of the committee contained in the document A/AC 183/2023/L3, which is before you, and which was circulated by the Secretariat to all committee members for comments, with an updated version to accommodate further Bureau adjustments circulated yesterday. I will briefly introduce the draft committee program of work 2023. We have 3 sections. Section 1 outlines the mandates of the committee and the Division for Palestinian Rights as contained in relevant resolutions of the GA adopted at the 7/7 session. Section 2 enumerates the activities of the committee and the Division for Palestinian Rights for 2023. In particular, the committee under this section will continue to engage member states and regional organizations with influence on the question of Palestine, including members of the Security Council. Priorities will be centered around 4 main aspects of the mandate. First, mobilization of the diplomatic community, including under subsection A, action at UN headquarters, observance of this International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian People, and advocacy at regional and intergovernmental meetings, respond to the General Assembly request to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the Nakba, and fielding of delegation visits abroad. Secondly, subsection B, under section 2, focuses on raising awareness on the question of Palestine, including 2023 conferences and events, the publications program, the website, United Nations Information System on the question of Palestine, delegation visits, and responding to the General Assembly request for information and data on the question of Palestine. Subsection 3, always under section 2, highlights the committee's cooperation with intergovernmental organizations, non-governmental interparliamentary organizations, as well as United Nations system entities. Finally, subsection D, under section 2, informs about the planned capacity building program for staff of the government of the State of Palestine. Section 3 refers to the practice of continuing the review and assessment of the program of work activities carried out annually. The program of work was crafted to enable greater flexibility during implementation and to accommodate events on the ground. Excellencies, dear colleagues, we count on your continued engagement for the successful implementation of the committee's program of work for 2023 and realization of the mandate of this committee. I now open the floor for any comments you may have before we adopt the draft. So the program of work draft. Are there any comments on the draft program of work? If there are no comments, I may take it that the committee wishes to approve its program of work for 2023 as contained in document A/AC 183/2023/L3. It's so decided. I would like now to inform you about recent and upcoming activities of the committee that have relevance for our work in 2023. Before I proceed, I wish to thank committee members and others for their strong show of support at the events organized in observance of the 2022 International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian People, held in New York and overseas on the 29th of November, and the solidarity messages sent by heads of state and government. A virtual exhibit titled Palestine Through Its People, Portraits of Palestinians, dedicated to the memory of the late Shireen Abu Akleh, was launched on the 29th of November as part of the commemoration. The exhibit included a dozen videos that shed light on the life and struggle of individual Palestinians, both in personal dimension and as an integral part of the long and ongoing journey of the Palestinian people for freedom and justice. On the 30th of November, the GA adopted with overwhelming member states' support 4 resolutions on the question of Palestine. These resolutions include Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People, Division for Palestinian Rights of the Secretariat, Special Information Program on the Question of Palestine of the Department of Global Communications of the Secretariat, and finally, the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine. It should be also noted that the General Assembly called on the Division for Palestinian Rights to dedicate its 2023 activities to the commemoration of the 75th anniversary of the Nakba, including by organizing a high-level event on the 15th of May, 2023. It has been mentioned, on the 18th of January, at the Security Council open debate on the situation in the Middle East, including the Palestinian question, I delivered a statement on behalf of the committee expressing the deep dismay at the recent development and provocations at the holy sites in Jerusalem, and increasing concern by the political dynamics and rising tensions. In the statement, I also reiterated the committee's preparedness to help garner the support needed to advance to the peace process toward ending the Israeli occupation that began in 1967. The full text of the statement is available on the UNISPAL site that can be accessed at www.un.org/UNISPAL. On this website, you will also be able to access the different documents prepared by the Secretariat, like the monthly bulletins, the weekly NGO action news, the annual compilations of UN resolutions and reports. So all those documents which are regularly disseminated via email or any other means to the membership, and a growing list of subscribers demonstrating the interest of the wider public on the question of Palestine. Moreover, I would like to also inform that the Bureau continued its outreach to member states to advocate for a just and lasting solution to the question of Palestine. On the 20th of February, the Bureau met with new members of the Security Council, Japan, Malta, Mozambique, and Switzerland, to enable an exchange of ideas on how we may support efforts towards resumption of peace negotiations between Israel and Palestine. And we sincerely thank here Ambassador Armanata Nasir Tata, permanent representative of Indonesia and vice chair of the committee, for kindly hosting us with a wonderful breakfast. The meeting was very, very fruitful. Thank you very much, Tata. Turning to upcoming activities, I would like to inform you about some of the upcoming events. On the 28th of February, the division will organize its annual briefing session for new delegates on the mandate and work of the committee and the division. Further details will be shared by the division in the coming weeks or in the coming days. I encourage all delegates, particularly those new to the UN headquarters and the committee, to take advantage of this useful briefing. In March, the committee will hold a virtual event on the margins of the annual session of the Commission on the Status of Women, and further information will be shared very soon by the division. I encourage you, all of you, to attend this important event. Are there any comments on what I have just stated? If I see none, I'm now going to give the floor for statements by delegations present here. So who want to take the floor? Who want to make a statement? Okay, I can see. Okay, I have the list here. Okay, on my list I have Egypt, Syria, Tunisia, Turkey, Namibia, Indonesia, Venezuela, Lebanon, China. So let me go first to Egypt. You have the floor.
Shukran. Thank you, Mr. Chair, my brother, Ambassador Sheikh Nyang. I would like at the outset to congratulate you on your election to chair the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People. I also congratulate the members of the Bureau, and I wish you all success in your endeavors. I also thank His Excellency the Secretary General for his continuing support of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people and for his statement. Mr. Chair, our meeting today is extremely important in light of the recent developments in the Palestinian issue and the increasing tensions on the occupied Palestinian territory. The situation in the occupied Palestinian territory has further deteriorated in the past period as a result of the Israeli practices, especially the settlement practices aiming at changing the status quo and undermining the two-state solution and any possible future political settlement. And I would like to convey our deep condolences to His Excellency Minister Riyad Mansour, representing the Honorable Representative of Palestine. We condemn the recent Israeli violations. We agree with the Secretary General, and we express our concern over the increasing Israeli violations, killing innocent civilians and using live munitions against children. We also regret the growing violence against Palestinians, the demolition of houses and Palestinian facilities, the incursions in the Palestinian cities, besides the blockade that has been imposed on the Gaza Strip for more than 15 years now. Against the growing violations and despite all these violations, Egypt commends the steadfastness of the Palestinian people and reiterates its full support of its legitimate rights and all the measures adopted by the Palestinian side in order to defend their legitimate rights, including asking for an advisory opinion from the International Court of Justice in line with the GA resolution in its current session. Egypt also appreciates the efforts of the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian people in support of the just and fair Palestinian cause. We reiterate the importance of keeping the Palestinian issue on the agenda of the international community until the Palestinian people recover their legitimate rights, mainly their right to self-determination and to an independent state along the lines of June 1967 with East Jerusalem as a capital. Egypt is committed to defending the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people and its just cause. We have spared no effort to support this cause, and I am confident that a day will come where this committee will celebrate the accession of the Palestinian people to its freedom and independence, which are long due, and will also get international recognition. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thank my colleague from Egypt, and I really appreciate his remarks and salute the steadfast support of Egypt to this process. Thank you once again. I now give the floor to the Syrian Arab Republic, which will be followed by Tunisia. You have the floor, Ambassador.
Shukran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like at the outset to thank the Secretary General for participating in this session and for the efforts made in support of the Palestinian cause. I would also like to congratulate you on your election to chair the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People. And I congratulate the members of the Bureau, wishing you all success in your noble endeavors and in supporting the rights of the Palestinian people, those inalienable rights. We can count on our continuous support. Mr. Chair, for more than 7 decades, the Palestinian people has been denied its rights. Israel, the occupying authority, is pursuing its policies based on occupation, killing, aggression, and demographic changes. It is expanding its settlements and plundering the resources, demolishing properties, and looting natural resources. All of these amount to war crimes and crimes against humanity, which require the intervention of the international community to hold Israel accountable. Israel has persisted in its aggressions against the Palestinian people and against our people in the occupied Syrian Golan. It has taken advantage of the silence of the Security Council. As a result, our region is witnessing unprecedented levels of tension and instability. The Syrian Arab Republic reaffirms that the Palestinian cause is a central cause. We support all the efforts aiming at implementing Security Council and General Assembly resolutions pertaining to the Palestinian issue, and putting an end to the continuing and systematic crimes that are perpetrated by the Israeli occupation forces against the Palestinian people and their blatant violations of international instruments and laws. And we call for holding them accountable for these crimes. The Syrian Arab Republic reiterates the inalienable right of the Palestinian people to self-determination and to establishing their independent state on all their national territories, with Jerusalem as a capital, and granting the State of Palestine a full membership in the United Nations and guaranteeing the right of the refugees to return to their homeland inland with the relevant GA resolution of 1948. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thank the ambassador of the Syrian Arab Republic for his strong statement, and I appreciate also your active participation to our work here. I now give the floor to Tunisia, and Tunisia will be followed by Turkey. Mon cher frère, vous avez la parole. Merci.
Mr. Chair, allow me to thank His Excellency Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres, for his commitment towards the just Palestinian question. I would like to congratulate you, Your Excellency Ambassador Cheikh Yang of Senegal, for your re-election as chair of the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People. I would also like to congratulate all other members of the committee and the Bureau. I wish you all success. The committee is playing an important role, especially in light of the serious developments we're seeing in the occupied Palestinian territories. Tunisia reaffirms its support to the committee, notably its efforts to ensure that the Palestinian people is granted its inalienable rights. We renew our firm and principled position and support to the rights of the Palestinian peoples, notably the right to self-determination and ending occupation and establishing its independent sovereign state along the lines of the 1967 borders, with East Jerusalem as its capital, in line with international law. Mr. President, we support the program of work of this year, and we value the committee's openness in engaging with member states of the United Nations, regional and international organizations, civil society organizations, including youth and women's organizations, to raise awareness of the role of the United Nations and the Committee on Palestine specifically. And that will in turn raise awareness globally of the different aspects of the just Palestinian question. I would like to express our support to the committee as it raises awareness globally of the just Palestinian question and shed light on the grave violations of international law by the occupying power, its repressive and discriminatory practices against the Palestinian people, its unilateral measures, its continued settlement activities. We also value programs to build capacities and increase the number of people benefiting from those programs, including removing all administrative and organizational obstacles. We look forward to participate in implementing the program of work of the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People in 2023 and mobilizing international efforts to ensure Palestinian rights. In conclusion, Tunisia welcomes the adoption of a presidential statement at the Security Council on the 20th of February. This statement states that the continued settlement activities by Israel constitute a dangerous threat to the two-state solutions on the basis of 1967 borders. It's an important step that came at the right time. It's also important to mobilize support to UNRWA, as it plays a critical role in alleviating the suffering of Palestinian refugees and supporting stability in the region. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Monsieur l'ambassadeur, je voudrais vous remercier pour les mots aimables de soutien.
Thank you very much for those words of support. I should also like to use this opportunity to hail Tunisia's historic role in supporting the Palestinian people. This support has been unstinting. Thank you very much.
Pillar of our committee and of the Bureau, which will be followed by another strong pillar. So that pillar is Namibia, and Namibia will be followed by Indonesia. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Chair, it looks like the floor is given to Turkey.
All my apologies. Turkey. I mean it, Turkey. Turkey, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Allow me at the outset to congratulate you and the members of the Bureau on your election. The responsibilities and activities of our committee are important and urgent as ever, as we continue to collectively support the Palestinian people in reaching their long-delayed right to live in their own sovereign and independent state. We thank His Excellency Minister Mansour for briefing the committee on the recent developments. We, as Turkey, condemn the decisions announced by the Israeli authorities on the 12th of February regarding the legalization of 9 outposts located in the West Bank, which is considered illegal even under Israeli law, and the expansion of illegal settlements. These unilateral steps further escalate the rising tension in the region recently as a result of the extremely concerning developments and increasing civilian casualties in the West Bank, while also severely damaging the ground for a lasting peace. We continue to call on Israel to end its actions, which may trigger a new spiral of violence in the region and contravene international law and the established UN parameters. Until and unless these unilateral acts come to an end, tension and imminent risk of escalation will continue to be present. We underline that ending the occupation is a prerequisite and key for any solution. We also note with deep regret and concern that 2022 was the deadliest year since the UN started to record civilian fatalities in the occupied Palestinian territory in 2005. The international community cannot turn a blind eye to the alarming situation. In that respect, the presidential statement that was adopted by the Security Council earlier this week was an important development. Continuing violations against the sanctity and status of Haram al-Sharif, including the provocations at Al-Aqsa Mosque, are also unacceptable and adds to the serious concerns about what lies ahead. The status of Haram al-Sharif must remain above domestic political considerations. Let me conclude, Mr. Chair, by reiterating Turkey's unwavering support and solidarity with the Palestinian people, as well as our continued support to all efforts towards finding a comprehensive and lasting solution to the conflict. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
I would like to thank my dear colleague from Turkey for her statement and for the words of support, and I really appreciate once again your commitment in the committee and even in other areas where your support to the Palestinian cause is very strong. We are looking forward to having that continued relationship with your country. Thanks again, Turkey. I now give the floor to Namibia. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, forgive me for
not sticking with the diplomatic niceties that we have become accustomed to in the halls of the United Nations. On a morning like today, I really do not feel it's appropriate for me to congratulate any one of us for being re-elected or for making statements. The situation is dire. We have a serious challenge ahead of us, in front of us. As we have listened to the Minister this morning, we have been reminded yet again of how serious and how our people, the people of Palestine, are being victimized, how their lives continue to be miserable and misery continues to deepen every day. The government and the people of Namibia stand with the people of Palestine now and throughout their struggle. We place great importance on the work of this Bureau and its mandate to fulfill the exercise of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. When one looks at Namibian foreign policy priorities, you will find that 4 out of the 5 priorities speak to our commitment to the work of this Bureau. And they are, number 1, to promote international cooperation, peace and security. 2, to create and maintain just and mutually beneficial relations. 3, to foster respect for international law and treaty obligations. And 4, to encourage the settlement of international disputes by peaceful means. Excellencies, the program of work for 2023 that's been presented to us offers important steps to build on the question of Palestine, and it is my hope that in executing these activities, we will continue to be bold in the pursuit of our mandate that remains realistic, implementable, rooted in justice and international law. As members of this committee, we have been entrusted with the responsibility to assist the peoples of Israel and Palestine in resolving this long-standing conflict. However, despite the adoption of numerous resolutions and decisions aimed at enabling the committee to promote the realization of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people, to assist in ending the Israeli occupation and to mobilize international support for and assistance to the Palestinian people, there has been no end in sight to the conflict and injustices. Just this morning, we have been reminded of another brutal attack in the city of Nablus. This reminded us again of the persistent misery inflicted on the people of Palestine by the occupying power. While my delegation welcomes United Nations Security Council resolutions and presidential statements urging full respect for international humanitarian law, including the protection of the civilian population, we are cognizant of the urgency of the situation, which remains highly volatile and desperate. We remain deeply concerned about the illegal unilateral measures by the occupying power, further undermining prospects for the peaceful resolution of the conflict. Dear colleagues, the year 2023 will be a time of historic consequence, with much riding on how our governments answer the urgent call to revitalize global cooperation and ensure that no one is left behind. We cannot talk of leaving no one behind when we live in a world in which the Palestinian people have been left behind. Our desire is for the people of both Israel and Palestine to live in peace and in a stable region that would ultimately enable the region to focus its energies, its resources, and its talents on development and progress. We unwaveringly believe in and support the Secretary General and the overwhelming majority of the UN member states in their conviction that there is no plan B to this two-state solution. Therefore, political dialogue that addresses the historic injustice of occupation, based on the 1967 borders and in accordance with international law and relevant UN resolutions, is the only way to ensure peaceful relations between Israel and Palestine. No peace is achievable without political process and engagement to stabilize and to heal. Excellencies, colleagues, as I conclude, allow me to once again reaffirm Namibia's unequivocal commitment and full solidarity with the cause of the Palestinian people to be able to exercise their inalienable right in an independent state of Palestine with East Jerusalem as its capital and as a rightful member of the United Nations and its specialized agencies in order to secure its long overdue rightful place amongst the global community of nations. And I thank you.
Je voudrais remercier mon...
I thank my colleague from Namibia for his moving and strong statement. This is aligned with the position of countries on Palestine and many other matters dealing with international justice. I think the DNA of Namibia, it's had a similar path as Palestine. This means that it has an elevated sense of justice. And this call from our brother must be heard. And as he said, let us ensure that we mobilize every effort to ensure real change in the status quo. This is more than urgent, and I believe firmly that with the commitment of all, we will be able to be successful. Thank you once again. And though you don't want us to congratulate each other, I wish to congratulate you for your motivating words. And this brings us to task. I now call upon another active member, constructive member of the Bureau and Committee, Indonesia, followed by Venezuela.
Thank you, Chair. I share the sentiment of my fellow Bureau member from Namibia and my good friend, Neville, that today is not the time to congratulate each other for being reappointed, especially after we heard the news and the statement by the minister from Palestine. It just highlights that our task in this committee, in this bureau, is very difficult and it's a mountain to climb. But I will, however, Chair, pledge my commitment, Indonesia's commitment, to working with the committee, under your leadership, to make sure that we make progress in realizing the dream, our dream, that the Palestinian people will have a home, will have an independent home, and become a full member of the UN. Let me just take this opportunity to express Indonesia's appreciation to the continued commitment of the Secretary General in helping to pursue a just and lasting peace on the question of Palestine. It is also encouraging, Chair, that the Security Council this last Monday took action responding to the latest development in the occupied Palestinian territory. While we believe that this action helped to show that the international community is not only sees to a conflict in other parts of the world, particularly in Europe. Nevertheless, the situation in the OPT remains deeply very concerning. As stated by the Secretary General, that 2022 was the deadliest year for the Palestinian people. And by the looks of it, 2023 is heading in the same direction. The continuing illegal policies and unilateral measures by the occupying power will make the life of the Palestinians in the OPT increasingly more difficult and dangerous. It may not be an over-exaggeration to say that the actions of the occupying power is creating hell on earth for the Palestinian people. This will only further put us deeper down the rabbit hole, increasing more tension, producing more violence, and will drive the condition further away from our ultimate goal of a two-state solutions. Therefore, Chair, the work of the committee and the concrete actions of the international community is ever more critical. Chair, we welcome the adoption of the committee's program of work. Indonesia believes that the committee must redouble its efforts, strengthen its engagement, and mobilize the international community to ensure that the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people are fulfilled. This includes working together with the wider international community to support the request for an advisory opinion of the ICJ concerning the illegal occupation. Please rest assured of my personal commitment to work with you, Chair, and the full support of my delegation and of Indonesia for the committee's work. Indonesia will continue to be unequivocal, to give its unequivocal support and solidarity to the Palestinian people and its unwavering commitment to the independent state of Palestine. Thank you, Chair.
I thank my colleague of Indonesia for his statement, for the unwavering principled support to the cause of Palestine, and for all the efforts Indonesia is doing to support the work of the committee. I can give you now an updated list of the speakers. We have Venezuela, Lebanon, China, Malaysia, Sri Lanka, Cuba, Jordan, and the League of Arab States. And before giving the floor to Venezuela, I would like to thank Mozambique for being among us here. This is a sign that of interest, and we were very encouraged by the meeting we had with your delegation at the breakfast meeting we had at the Indonesian mission. So we thank you for your support and look forward to seeing you being more active within the Security Council to support the peace process and the cause of Palestine. I thank you. I give now the floor to Venezuela.
Thank you very much, sir. At the outset, I wish to congratulate you on being re-elected on this committee on the exercise of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. You and the rest of the Bureau have the full support of my delegation in carrying out your mandate and to advance the mandate and the objectives of this committee. We value the participation of the Secretary General in this meeting. This shows the importance our organization gives to the Palestinian question and the need to revive the peace process to put an end to this long tragedy. We agree with what the Secretary General has said. Also, we welcome the statement made by the permanent representative of the State of Palestine, and we convey our condolences after this terrible events this morning. The Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela reaffirms its position defending the independence and inalienable rights of the Palestinian people to their self-determination and realizing their national legitimate aspirations. We renew our commitment and continue to work towards a Palestinian state that is free, independent, and sovereign with borders pre-1967 and East Jerusalem as its capital. This two-state solution is the only way, the just lasting way that is broadly supported by the international community to put an end to one of the most painful conflicts facing humanity. Some 2 weeks ago, we heard the priorities of the Secretary General for 2023. He underscored that we should step up efforts to ensure that peace can be a reality in the world. We support this call, and we believe we need to adopt, without delay, measures to reduce tensions, to avoid escalation, and to ensure an environment to restore necessary political dialogue and credible, serious, and direct negotiations to enable achieving just, comprehensive, and lasting peace on the basis of this two-state solution, living side by side in peace and security. Sir, more than 75 years has passed since the participation of Palestine and Nakba. For more than 75 years, the heroic people of Palestine have withstood with great courage the colonial aggression, military brutality, the criminal policy of apartheid perpetuated so far with total impunity by the occupying power. In this respect, we are very concerned about the exacerbation of the situation on the ground, including violation of the status quo of holy sites, whereas the suffering of the Palestinian people have been victims of violent attacks by the Israeli occupation. This is only continuing in time. We reiterate our call on the occupying power to comply with its obligations under the relevant resolutions of the General Assembly and Security Council, to put an end to its systematic violations of international law, to put an end to its colonial occupation and policy of apartheid, to put an end to the perpetration of crimes against humanity and of war against the heroic people of Palestine, but also especially to put an end to any unilateral approach or action, including for demographic changes. Sir, we believe the time has come to adopt with urgency and as a priority the measures needed to provide international protection to the Palestinian civilian population, but also guarantee that those responsible for these atrocious crimes that have been inflicted for years upon the heroic Palestinian people, that those responsible be held accountable before international justice. We cannot let this brutal Israeli aggression to be a point of no return. There must be an end to the international impunity that has been ongoing over time, perpetuated by one member of the Security Council, and which has only fueled crimes of the occupying power. Sir, lastly, we wish to express our support to the program of work adopted, including to implement Resolution 77-247 of the General Assembly and the advisory opinion of the ICJ. We underscore our firm commitment to continue to actively and constructively participate in the work of this committee. We wish to echo the words by Ambassador Mansour on Monday before the Security Council. He said, "Liberty, not occupation, coexistence, not supremacy, peace, not apartheid." This must guide our work to effectively move towards preserving a two-state solution, towards the peaceful, comprehensive, just, and lasting resolution of the question of Palestine, and towards the state of Palestine becoming a fully fledged member of our organization. Thank you.
I thank my dear colleague of Venezuela for his principled and strong statement. I now give the floor to Lebanon, which will be followed by China. Lebanon.
شكرا جزيلا السيد الرئيس. أود أن أهنئ.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I should like to congratulate you upon your re-election to the position of chairman of this committee. I should also like to congratulate all Bureau members. Thank you very much, Ambassador Nyong. Thank you to all members of the committee on the exercise of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. Thank you very much for your hard work here at the committee. We should also like to express our gratitude to the Secretary General for his comments. Mr. Chairman, the committee has taken measures to ensure that the Palestinian question has visibility by organizing conferences, activities, work sessions, and this on an annual basis. This year, various events will be held to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the Nakba. There will be a high-level event in the General Assembly Hall on the 15th of May of this year, 2023. This is an important meeting which will serve to underscore the very difficult situation the Palestinian people have been facing for over 75 years, owing to the ongoing occupation, which has deprived Palestinian people of their land and their identity. 75 years on, the Palestinian people remain committed to their inalienable rights and to their lands, hoping for a two-state solution. Mr. Chairman, despite international efforts and myriad peace initiatives as well as relevant UN resolutions, the situation on the ground is going from bad to worse for the Palestinian people. It's an unfair reality, the reality of the occupation. This remains unchanged. We've also seen aggressive Israeli campaigns in East Jerusalem, Gaza, and the West Bank. The expansion of Israeli settlements is a flagrant violation of international law and international humanitarian law. The only way to peace in the Middle East is a fair, a just and comprehensive solution rooted in international legitimacy and relevant UN resolutions. The last resolution adopted on the topic is Resolution 2334. The overarching aim being a Palestinian state within 4th June 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as the capital and the withdrawal of the Israeli occupants from all of Palestinian territory. Thank you very much.
I thank the distinguished delegate of Lebanon for his important statement. I'm now going to give the floor to China, which will be followed by Malaysia. China, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, China congratulates you on your re-election as the chair of the committee. We also congratulate other members of the Bureau on their election. China highly commend the committee's work for its active mandate implementation, its efforts in raising the international community's attention to the question of Palestine, its full support for the exercise of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people, and its efforts to promote a comprehensive, just, and lasting settlement of this question. Since the beginning of this year, a series of negative events in the occupied Palestinian territory has been developing in the opposite direction of peace and stability. Violence in the West Bank has intensified, causing continued heavy casualties of civilians, including children. The sanctity of the Jerusalem's religious holy sites has been violated time and again, and the historical status quo has been frequently challenged. The escalating Israeli settlement activity has led to widespread condemnation and concern. On Monday, this past Monday, the Security Council held a public meeting and issued its first presidential statement on the Palestinian issue in nearly 9 years, reaffirming its commitment to the vision of the two-state solution and expressing strong opposition to the unilateral measures that impede peace, including the construction and expansion of settlements. This is an important step in managing the current crisis, and it further reflects the determination and will of the overwhelming majority of the Council members to uphold and implement the two-state solution. China appreciates UAE's efforts in promoting the Council's voice. The fundamental reason for the frequent flare-ups of the Israeli-Palestinian tension is the stagnation of the Israeli-Palestinian peace talks and the continued delay in implementing the two-state solution. In the face of the historical injustice that the Palestinian people have suffered for so long, there's no excuse for delay or inaction for anyone. With a sense of urgency, the international community must make greater efforts to promote the resumption of Palestinian-Israeli talks and take substantive steps to advance the two-state solutions on the basis of the relevant UN resolutions. The Council has an unshirkable responsibility on the question of Palestine and needs to stand ready to take meaningful action and shoulder its responsibilities under the Charter. China has always been attaching great importance to the question of Palestine. President Xi Jinping has repeatedly put forward proposals on the settlement of the Palestinian issue and sent congratulatory messages to the UN commemorative meeting of the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian People for 10 consecutive years. China will unswervingly support the just cause of the Palestinian people to restore their legitimate national rights and will continue to make unremitting efforts to promote an early, just, and lasting settlement of the question of Palestine. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thank the distinguished delegate of China for these important remarks and count on China to really play a role in helping advance the cause of peace within the Security Council. I now give the floor to the League of Arab States to take the floor. You have the floor, Ambassador.
شكرا جزيلا سيادة الرئيس.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. At the outset, I should like to congratulate you on your re-election. Congratulations to all members of the Bureau on their election to their positions for this year. Congratulations on the program of work. I'd like to thank the committee and the Secretary General for expounding on their respective positions in support of the Palestinian people who are facing a hostile campaign being waged by the extremist government of Israel. Thank you also for defending the two-state solution as well as the holy sites, Christian and Muslim alike, in the occupied Palestinian territory, especially in East Jerusalem, the capital of the Palestinian state. The Palestinian question will remain a pivotal issue for the League of Arab States, for Arab and Muslim governments and people. Muslims are people who defend peace and stability. The 30th Summit, the 30th Arab Summit, will be taking place, and it will be devoted to resistance and development. It took place on the 12th of February with various presidents from the region, as well as other high-ranking leaders from the Arab world and other countries. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for participating and for sending a strong signal, conveying a strong message on behalf of the committee. We'd like to express our gratitude to you for helping us to adopt the final communiqué outlining our objectives at the international level with a view to helping the Palestinian people. We stand in solidarity and will remain in this position as the Palestinian people confronts aggression, whether that be in Nablus, in Jenin, around Al-Aqsa. It behooves us to offer protection to the Palestinian people. Israel must be held accountable for its decisions, especially Decision 904, which was mentioned by the Palestinian ambassador earlier this morning. A decision which calls for settlers to have fewer arms to be disarmed. The League of Arab States should like to condemn the building of 10,000 units, in addition to the 9 outposts. This decision was taken, and it was the first such decision since 2016. Therefore, the UN Security Council should pursue a resolution on this issue so as to mobilize all of our efforts. The UN Security Council must shoulder its responsibility in this area. We will continue working in support of the committee and the committee's bureau. It is vital for the United Nations and at the various summits we're going to convene, such as the Summit on SDGs, the Summit on the Future. At all of these events, the UN must assume its responsibilities vis-à-vis Palestine, must promote the two-state solution in the outcome documents of these events. The UN must issue double standards when it comes to the occupation, whether that be in Ukraine or in Palestine. We're all well aware that there are many meetings convened on Ukraine, for instance, this afternoon between 3 p.m. and 9 p.m., in addition to a UN Security Council meeting there'll be a UN Security Council meeting on Ukraine. But if we look at Palestine, well, the attitude is different. Palestine suffers, this question suffers from double standards. It's facing injustice. We need to combat injustice, impunity, and violations of international law in all countries, upholding human rights as well as international humanitarian law. It is incumbent upon us to defend Palestine in various international fora, such as the International Court of Justice. The ICJ must respond to the UNGA resolution. We must collect evidence, legal precedents, and facts so that Palestine can finally get an appropriate response. This is something we did in 2004 when we were addressing the issue of the wall. I therefore would like to call on the committee to make efforts in this area. Furthermore, we need to increase the number of states which recognize the state of Palestine. We must convince these countries to do so, to recognize Palestine, so that Palestine can become a fully fledged member of the United Nations on the basis of President Abbas's request issued during the high-level week of the General Assembly. Last but not least, we need a political framework for the International Quartet, convening an international conference. In fact, since 2018, there have been 4 requests for such an event to be convened, and neither the General Assembly nor the Security Council responded. We need to achieve a Palestinian state within 4th June 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as the capital. Thank you.
Monsieur l'ambassadeur, je voudrais vous...
Ambassador, thank you very much for that essential statement. I very much value the recommendations you have submitted to the committee. We value the collaboration that's been established between our committee and the League of Arab States, and I had the pleasure and the honor of taking part in the event that was held in Cairo, the high-level ministerial meeting. We saw at that meeting that the Palestinian question is a top priority for the League of Arab States. We very much value our cooperation here in New York and elsewhere. So congratulations. Congratulations to the League of Arab States, and congratulations to you on your personal commitment. Thank you very much for helping strengthen the ties that bind this committee and the League of Arab States. Thank you very much. I would now like to hand over to our next speaker, Malaysia. But before I do so, I just wanted to use this opportunity to issue our solemn gratitude to Said Ashri, our colleague, who was supposed to be a member of this committee, but his successor will now sit on this committee. Thank you very much to him for his extraordinary input, his generous input to the work of our committee. So, Malaysia, perhaps you can bear witness and express our gratitude to that colleague. Malaysia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Malaysia would like to congratulate the elected Bureau members of the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People and the Secretary General for his remark today. Our delegation would also like to express our appreciation for the consideration to include Malaysia as a member, despite the absence of our permanent representative. The challenges that lie ahead this committee is no doubt a Herculean task, hence the invaluable role played by CEIRPP in delivering its mandate to promote the rights to support the peace processes and to mobilize assistance to the Palestinian people is commendable. Mr. Chair, the protected agony and suffering of the Palestinian people in pursuing their inalienable right to an independent state has gone for far too long. Malaysia will continue to stand with the people of Palestine and expresses its unwavering support and solidarity with them. We remain convinced that the internationally recognized two-state solution with East Jerusalem as the capital of Palestine based on the pre-1967 borders can be realized if the international community, especially members of the Security Council, exert all efforts to ensure its full implementation. Malaysia also remains committed to support the work of the UNRWA in providing assistance to Palestinian refugees, including through predictable funding. You can count on Malaysia's unwavering support toward the work of this committee and the realization of the Palestinian people's inalienable rights to self-determination, national independence and sovereignty. Thank you.
Je remercie la...
Thank you very much, distinguished representative of Malaysia. Thank you for your important statement. I'd now like to hand over to the Ambassador of Sri Lanka. On a personal note, I should like to thank the Ambassador for the role he's played, an active role in supporting the Palestinian cause, and I'm well positioned to express this because I'm very well versed in his commitment. We've worked together, so I have the utmost respect and admiration for his commitment. Thank you very much. On behalf of the committee, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and for the very kind sentiments that you have expressed. I can only reciprocate that sentiment in a large measure. Listening to all of us speak this morning, Mr. Chair, I was certainly convinced of the expression that Pope Francis recently said when he said that the world suffers from the famine of peace. From the famine of peace. And that seems to be pretty clear from all what we've heard and what I have had also gathered in the process of chairing the Israeli Practices Committee on Occupied Arab Lands, which I share with you. I do agree with Ambassador Neville of Namibia that today perhaps is not a day for bouquets. That's quite true. For the reason that this issue has been exacerbated and played out for far too long. And it's really an indictment of all of us of the international community that we have not been able to bring this to a mutually acceptable closure. So, Mr. Chairman, without saying anything more, I do not need any convincing because I've heard it for myself sitting on the committee with you. And I could only re-echo the sentiments that has been echoed here this morning. However, may I permit me the formality of thanking you for taking on this task once more and to assure you that Sri Lanka will be behind you fully in this task of our search for peace. I think Ambassador Mansour was pleased to give us a very short but comprehensive position with regard to the current position in Palestine. I can only assure him that as far as Sri Lanka was concerned, that we would leave no stone unturned in giving you every little support that we can in the resolution of this matter. Yeah. Now, I can only perhaps, I would like to end up by these few words by simply saying, or perhaps virtually say a prayer, that we remember that the Holy Land of Palestine is a shared space, and pray to see the day that all peoples and religions will live there together in peace. That we hope for the day when Palestine refugees may return from wherever they take refuge in. We pray that together with their Jewish neighbors, that they can rehabilitate their history and rebuild what could be the best place on earth, a place of many cultures and true equality. And I finally really pray that Palestinians will be able to live free from violence and oppression. And we ask help from everyone in the international community to help us build bridges of peace for them. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Excellence, je voudrais vous...
Your Excellency, thank you very much for your impassioned statement. A statement that was most eloquent. It's always very inspiring to listen to you, to hear you, and that is why we're so grateful to you for all of your work on the Israeli Practices Committee and beyond, everything you're doing for the Palestinian cause. Much like many other colleagues, I'd like to say that it's high time that we make headway. And we hope that with everybody's commitment, we can shift the paradigm and improve the condition of the martyr people, the Palestinian people. I still have 3 speakers on my list: Cuba, Jordan, and Nicaragua. I'd now like to give the floor to Cuba, Vice Chair of the committee, a very active committee member, my friend, my colleague, Ambassador Pedro. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. I agree fully with what was said by my brother from Namibia, that it is not a time for congratulations. In any event, we should renew our resolve in the objectives of this committee for the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. Today, it doesn't seem we are closer than at the time of its creation in reaching our objectives. We are in a very uncertain time. We cannot say in good conscience that we are close to a process for dialogue, for negotiation, as under the various resolutions of the General Assembly and Security Council. Our friend, the Ambassador of Sri Lanka, referred to the Pope, Pope Francis, and he said what he'd said, this famine for peace, but it seems that peace is the only way forward and is necessary. This afternoon, we will once again have a debate which we believe is sterile because it is not sincere. This is about peace going in just one direction. I wish to call the attention of the members of this committee. This debate that we will have this afternoon once again, this highlights the double standards within the United Nations in terms of addressing conflicts to international peace and security. As was said before, in many resolutions of the General Assembly and Security Council on the Palestine question and the rights of the Palestinian people to have one state with their borders as determined before 1967. Yet the Security Council is at a standstill on this Palestinian question. Its decision capacity is on just one theme, as if there weren't any other matters on the table under the Security Council's attention and to the General Assembly's attention. I think that the time has come for us to say that perhaps the Security Council is unable to fulfill the mandate under the Charter to resolve this Palestinian question. We cannot delay. We think the presidential statement of the Council is quite welcome, but it's still insufficient. As the Bureau of the Committee said, and as is repeated here, this is completely insufficient and is not matching the demands, the needs for the Palestinian people affected in recent days and months. Given all of this, we are committing an atrocious crime against the Palestinian people. And no media is discussing these crimes. No Western government is raising its voice against these crimes. And we are adopting positions on other themes instead. I think we must bear this in mind in this afternoon's debate in the General Assembly. I just wish to convey to the Palestinian state Cuba's firm resolve to support the cause and any other initiative bringing us closer to the objectives of this committee. Thank you.
Je remercie mon distingué collègue.
Thank you very much to my colleague and Vice Chair of the committee, Ambassador Pedro Pedroso. I share his assessment of the current situation. We see ongoing violence, ongoing abuses targeting the Palestinian people. Having said that, we see inertia in the peace process. Many colleagues have flagged this, and it's time for the committee to consider all of this and to find a way forward so that we can come up with solutions, or at least initiatives, which might help us to unblock the situation. Thank you very much for your principled, impassioned, very strong comments. Once again, thank you so much for all of your hard work on the committee. On my list, I have 2 speakers left, Jordan to be followed by Nicaragua. I also see that the State of Palestine has requested the floor. Jordan, you have the floor, please.
Mr. Chair, as you've been re-elected as chair of the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People, I would like to express Jordan's appreciation to the committee and its role in defending the rights of the Palestinian people and its right to self-determination. The rights of the Palestinian people that are suffering under the yoke of occupation. Your efforts to liberate the Palestinian people from occupation so that they're able to establish an independent state on the occupied Palestinian territories, occupied since 1967, including East Jerusalem. There is no doubt that the Palestinian question is at a critical juncture. As a result of a number of regional factors, and as a result of the current Israeli government, which is the most right-wing, the most extremist Israeli government so far. This prompts us all to stand together to defend the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people. We have to enable the Palestinian people to regain these rights one day. The committee needs to continue to play its important role in this regard, whether in protecting the rights of the Palestinian people or the civilians, confronting Israeli practices, and also raising awareness of the Palestinian question in light of the attack in the media, the attacks by the media portraying Israel as the victim and the Palestinian people as the aggressor. What we've witnessed 2 days ago in the Security Council, 2 days ago, the attempts by Israel to demonize Palestinians, demonize even children and regard them as terrorists. What we've witnessed is a good example of that. When I listened to him, I couldn't believe my ears. He was trying to justify the killing of Palestinian children and that Israel has a legitimate right to kill Palestinian children. This is serious. This is serious statements that needs a response. All members of the international community must respond to this statement. This is why the committee needs to shed light on these practices. All members that are defending freedom, defending the right of peoples to self-determination, all these members must unveil the truth. The attempts of Israel to obfuscate reality should not prevent the international community from seeing the truth. Of course, the anniversary of the Nakba is an opportunity to raise awareness in the General Assembly. I hope that members of the committee can make written submissions to the ICJ. From my own experience in 2004, I know that there will be a number of countries that will attack the ICJ, the jurisdiction of the ICJ. So we need a different front, another front that presents written submissions, legal submissions. And I think our brothers and sisters in the delegation of Palestine have the correct strategy, and they can maybe help countries to highlight the points that need to be highlighted in any written submission presented by member states. On the question of Jerusalem, we must focus on this issue. We must fight Israel's attempts to erase the Muslim identity and Christian and Arab identity in Jerusalem. Israel is just focusing on settlement activities in Jerusalem. It's trying to Judaize the holy sites, and this is also a serious issue. In Jordan, we're trying, of course, to play our role as best we can through the custodian of the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan of the Muslim and Christian holy sites in Jerusalem. We're trying to organize the movements around the Al-Aqsa Mosque, but there are several attacks in this area, as you know. Showing that the Israeli attempts will continue until they reach the spatial and temporal division of Jerusalem. Of course, also Christian holy sites are threatened in Jerusalem. Jerusalemites can give you several examples of attacks that don't only occur on Muslim holy sites, but also on Christian holy sites. And here again, through you, Mr. Chair, we have to shed light on these issues. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, distinguished representative of Jordan. Thank you for your strong statement. Specifically, I'd like to thank him for the recommendations to the committee. The committee has taken note of those and will consider those carefully. I also share your analysis. The facts on the ground are being falsified. They're being manipulated. The narratives are being manipulated. I'm of the view that we shouldn't idly sit there and watch as this is happening. Thank you. Regarding the preservation of the historic status quo of the city of Jerusalem, it is, of course, a very difficult context we're facing, but I'd like to thank you for your commitment. I also wish to use this opportunity to thank you for the warm welcome the committee received when we were hosted in Amman. We saw firsthand your commitment and everything you've done through UNRWA, through taking positions on the Palestinian question. Thank you very much for your high caliber participation in the work of the committee. We can count on you. The next speaker on my list is the vice chairperson of the committee, a very committed member of the committee. I am, of course, speaking about my brother and friend, Jaime, Ambassador of Nicaragua. You have the floor.
Gracias.
Thank you very much, esteemed and dear friend and chairperson. Greetings to all present. Firstly, we should recognize the efforts and contribution made by this committee to fulfill the mandate from the General Assembly and to help the Palestinian people in defending the exercise of their inalienable rights. It is of concern, and it is also painful to hear this information provided once again today, shared by Palestine and all other speakers on the deterioration of the situation for the Palestinian people. And this situation is getting worse and worse over time. This is an indication of what has been said, and Nicaragua agrees with what was said by other members of the Bureau and the committee and you, sir. We reiterate the importance for the committee to step up its efforts in order to ensure the aspirations, the historic aspirations of the Palestinian people, that we can address this and tackle this historic injustice. As we know very well, we show solidarity towards Palestine. We always have. This cooperation has been ongoing for many decades. We always remember with fondness the first visit of the chairman of the Palestinian Revolution, a dear colleague that we remember from the Sandinista Revolution and by our leader, Ortega. Once again, we reiterate our solidarity. We also note that there is a need to step up our efforts, as I was saying. We heard a number of speakers. We recognize as well all the efforts and contributions of the Office of the Division for Palestinian Rights in helping the Bureau and the committee to fulfill this mandate and ensure that the plight of the Palestinian people, their plight for peace, for a two-state solution, to help them to meaningfully realize a Palestinian state with its capital in East Jerusalem based on the pre-1967 border lines. Thank you very much for your contribution. It is quite significant, sir. Thank you.
Je remercie le distingué.
Thank you very much to the Distinguished Ambassador of Nicaragua for that outstanding statement, outstanding as always. And we know Nicaragua is firmly in the camp that's seeking to resolve the Palestinian question. Thank you very much for your work in the Bureau and on the committee for the cause. I still have two speakers on my list. The State of Palestine, to be followed by South Africa. I give the floor to the State of Palestine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had actually requested the floor to extend the apologies of Minister Mansour, who had departed our meeting for an urgent meeting with the President of the Security Council regarding today's developments. But having listened very closely to the statements that have been made today, I do want to take the floor on behalf of our delegation and on behalf of Minister Mansour to express our profound gratitude to you and to all the members of the committee who are here with us today and who have spoken with such principle and compassion and sincerity in support of the Palestinian people and in support of their human rights and in support of international law and action for accountability, in support of the equal implementation of international law to protect vulnerable civilians who have too long suffered under Israel's illegal colonial occupation and apartheid regime, and to promote justice for the Palestinian people and the realization of the peace that we all seek and that this committee is dedicated to achieving. Mr. Chair, as you heard in Minister Mansour's statement this morning, and as we all know, the Palestinian people are again today grieving, and it is a painful, ongoing grief for all the loss of life, including many children, and for all of the devastation that is being inflicted on our people generation after generation, and the loss of hope that this is causing. So your expressions, your collective expressions of solidarity and condolences and support come at a critical moment, and they will be conveyed to our people. And we ask that you continue your principled efforts to translate these expressions of solidarity and support into tangible measures of accountability here in the Security Council, in the General Assembly, at the International Court of Justice, at the ICC, in capitals, in cooperation with civil society. There needs to be concrete steps for accountability to uphold our collective obligations under international law and our moral obligations in the face of the inhumanity that the Palestinian people have been facing for over 75 years. And I thank you once again, Mr. Chair, and I thank all the Bureau and committee members and reiterate our appeals and gratitude for your solidarity and efforts. Minister Mansour, do you wish to add anything?
Yes, I do. In addition to what Ambassador Fida has said, I just wanted to inform you that in the initial part of this meeting, I received a telephone call from my leadership instructing me to go back to the Security Council with regard to the issue of providing protection for our people. And then we started moving based on such instructions, and I was grateful that the President of the Security Council, the Ambassador of Malta, was ready to receive me when I wanted to alert you that and to apologize to everyone that I have to go and meet with her to put her in the picture of the latest details of this massacre and the request of the Palestinian people and their leadership for implementing the resolutions of the Security Council, including the statements, the last statement, and also the report of the SG, which he submitted in the year 2018 and was welcomed by the General Assembly in our resolutions past year. So I had a very constructive meeting with the President of the Security Council. We will begin the consultation on seeing the Security Council shouldering their responsibility in this regard. We will have an Arab ambassadorial meeting at 2 o'clock. It was planned ahead of time, so we will briefly discuss this issue of, going back to the Security Council. And I am informing all of you regarding this subject, and we appreciate your support and your help and your statements, the collective ones and the national ones. We have to keep the pressure on this ruthless, extremist Israeli government because they are determined to explode the entire region. But if they do succeed in doing that, they should not blame anyone except themselves for whatever will happen. Our people will not surrender. They will not give up the struggle. They will stay the course of struggling for their rights, including, as we always say, the implementation of all of their inalienable rights as we all know them. This is where we are with regard to this latest aggression that started this morning. We will also share with you a copy of a letter that we are sending to the Security Council about the details of this crime committed against our people in Nablus today. And we will also send that letter to the SG and to the President of the General Assembly. In addition to that, as I think more than an ambassador, including my brother Tata from Indonesia, with regard to the ICJ, we are in the midst of preparation. We want each and every one of you willing and able to submit written intervention to the court to do so. If you need any help, we will provide the help for you as to the subjects that you should concentrate on. Our legal team is finishing the template to help those who want to submit submissions to help them to do so. Once these templates are finished, we will share them with all of you, and we are also trying to have a pool of lawyers for countries that do not have resources and capabilities to cover the expenses of lawyers, but want to submit written submission so that such lawyers would be of help to them. We will keep informing you of all these details. I am sure that you know the schedule. The court sent an invitation to all of you that the latest submission, written submission, is the 25th of July, so that you better be ready and submit your written statement to the court before the 25th. Then the court also informed all of you, all of us, that the latest date is October 22nd for submitting remarks on all of the written submissions of others. So you will have that second deadline to meet if you wish to do that. And then the court will tell us when they will allow for oral submissions and oral interventions at a later date before they go fully to the deliberations and the announcement of the advisory opinion. So these are the schedules. If you need any additional information, you can contact me or any member of our delegation of the State of Palestine. And we look forward to seeing very active involvement by the members of the committee in this exercise. It's extremely valuable to us, and it is extremely needed for advancing the cause of justice for the Palestinian people. And we thank you in advance for doing so. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, and to all of our colleagues that we did two statements in one, but the circumstances, put us in that situation to do it in this way. And I'm grateful for FIDA for sitting and listening to the dozen or more other statements that I missed, and she reflected on them in her statement. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Minister Mansour, for this feedback. The committee will remain alert in following up on those issues you mentioned and make sure that the committee members and others participate in all the issues you have mentioned, particularly the ICJ issue. And I thank also Ambassador Feder for her very kind words. Actually, you are an inspiration to the committee, you are an inspiration to us against and despite all odds, despite the adversity, despite the inertia. You are always there, standing strong, determined, and the least the committee can do is to stand by your side and stand for the rights of the Palestinians and stand for justice and stand for international law. And those stances will remain strong as long as the question of Palestine stays unresolved. So the last speaker on my list for the statements by committee members is South Africa. My dear brother, you have the floor.
And congratulations on your re-election. And I would also like to start by thanking Minister Mansour for this comprehensive briefing about the next steps as regards the court. I think South Africa will be interested, as we have done before, in making a submission. South Africa condemns the crimes against humanity that continue to be committed against the people of Palestine. Apartheid has become a daily and complete reality. The death spiral we saw even today continues, and in our view, it is totally unacceptable. This week, the UN Security Council had an opportunity to change course and move away from the lethargy that has characterized this consideration of this file for the past 7 decades. We agree with the Ambassador of Cuba that the PRST is important, but it does not go far enough. The Security Council could have done better. We therefore wish to pledge South Africa's support for the people of Palestine, and we also share the views of other delegations in this meeting about the role of the committee. I thank you.
I thank the Ambassador of South Africa for his very strong statement, which reflects the commitment of South Africa in the question of Palestine. So thank you once again so very much. I don't see any other speakers on my list. At this point, are there any other matters which any mission, any member state want to raise? If there are no any other matters to be discussed, I will adjourn the meeting. This meeting is adjourned.